this case feels very real. It's got the twists and turns of a real-life investigation.
It's a really cool format.
The series also asks the big question, what does it take to catch a killer? Welcome to True Crime Unravelled, the show in which criminologist Doro Townshend and me, Yinka Bokinni, dive right into the heart of some of the biggest true crime stories. We'll be digging into the cases, the investigations, and the outcomes, and taking a look at some of the amazing documentaries and dramas that have brought these stories to life. This time, we're discussing the first episode of Murder Island, a brand new immersive series which follows 8 ordinary people as they compete to solve a fictional murder case. With investigative techniques and police resources, they must race to identify a suspect and bring them to justice, with the winning team taking home the £50,000 prize. What's the takeaway that you got?
It is different, but it still gives us all as viewers and as true crime fans this insight into a world that we don't see that much of. Even in the documentaries, you do get to see more of a picture of exactly how it would unfold in a real case.
To see what the average person is like on the crime scene, on an investigation, on a murder investigation, I thought it was just so interesting to watch.
The show is shot on a remote Scottish island called Hershire, and it's essentially an immersive series based around a sort of fictionalised murder plot, created and written by Ian Rankin.
I'm a huge fan of his, by the way.
8 members of the public get put onto this island to act as investigators to try and solve this fake murder case. And at the end, there's a £50,000 prize if they get it right.
So it's a whodunit, it's a murder mystery, it's a Cluedo live in the flesh.
Exactly. These amateur detectives have to get enough information to build what would be equivalent to an actual watertight case to be taken to court. But they're not in it alone. They are critiqued and guided along the way by some of Britain's leading senior investigating officers.
Whilst this is a fictional murder, there is a fictional victim. So can you tell me about her?
Charlie Hendrick, who's found inside the manse, which is their rented home. The victim had recently returned to the island from mainland Scotland and was described as an eco-warrior. The investigators find a pamphlet which is about a proposed eco-resort on the island. And it would appear from other evidence found within Charlie's home that this is something that Charlie was strongly opposed to.
Which sort of indicates a motive.
Yeah, and I mean, that is essentially all the evidence we have.
We do have a clip from episode 1 of Murder Island, and in this we see Superintendent Sandhu explaining the importance of crime scene investigation, whilst 2 of our amateur detectives have a go at collecting evidence.
When you stand at this scene where there has been a bloody murder and there is blood and there is, it's horrible and it's distressing, but you must make sure that nobody walks through that blood scene and we don't lose vital evidence. If you haven't done it properly, when you go to court, it will be dismissed as being inadmissible.
Dot? Yeah? Can you grab some pictures here?
Is that all rubbish?
There's blood marks up the wall on these. And then there's black handprints there. And then looks like there's some sort of stain with the same hand. I think that paint has got something to do with I reckon that's like the murderers.
The paint?
Yeah, there's like metallic markings of like fingerprints and stuff on all the door frames.
No, that's where they found the fingerprints. You know, where you dust fingerprints to see what's underneath. That's what that is.
Ah, yes. They don't know what they're doing.
How do you thoroughly investigate a crime scene if it isn't wandering all over it like we've seen here?
Glasses off. Fun Honor is back. So the first thing to consider is Locard's principle of exchange.
Which is what exactly?
That is essentially the idea that when a violent crime is committed, trace evidence will be left behind. That evidence isn't always easy to find, easy to see, but there will be evidence.
Okay. So by trace evidence, is it like fingerprints?
Fingerprints, DNA, clothing fibres, footwear marks, you know, like footprints, all of those kind of things. So that's trace evidence.
Okay, and it's the detective's job to find, discover this evidence.
Is there any evidence of some sort of activity in the property? Are there any smells, you know? Is there evidence of alcohol consumption or substance use? And then all of these things together will start to build the picture of not only the scene, but potentially the victim themselves.
You kind of have to start like really, really close and then slowly bring yourself out, rather than having the bigger picture and trying to hone in.
Even if you're going in and your mind is coming up with preconceived ideas of what might have happened, you have to be willing to let that go.
So we do have another clip, and here we see our amateur investigators gearing up to take their first interviews.
You've got to gain their trust to start off with. If you go in there acting like a knobhead, then they're not going to appreciate that at all.
Ma'am, there's police here to talk to you about this morning.
What do you think that you would do?
Soft. I think be nice to people gets you the furthest in life.
It's a very close-knit community.
Bye!
There's a post office and a shop.
It's really important to work out how Charlie fits into that community and what binds them together.
One person who will know what it takes to catch a killer is Detective Inspector Graham McMillan. Now, he is one of the experts on the show, and he's conducted numerous investigations and brought dozens of criminals to justice. So, Macca, as you're known, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm fine, thanks yourselves.
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for joining.
What are some of the most common mistakes that you found throughout this process?
I think some of these contestants they'll go and speak to a witness, and they're going to ask the witness the questions that they've got, no matter what they say. So they're not actively listening to what's being said. You've got to leave your egos at the door, because you might not get on with people, you might not like them, but at the end of the day, they may have the information that you want. If you're speaking to somebody and they don't like you personally, let your partner take over.
Parking egos? No.
Never. In your opinion, what does it take to make a good detective?
I think you've got to have a number of personality traits. You've got to be well-rounded, because one minute you might be speaking to, bereaved family, next you're speaking to a vulnerable witness and you want to get them to open up. And the next you're interviewing a killer. On this island, on Hershire, we've got a bunch of strangers coming in and suddenly saying, where were you last night and what were you doing, So you've got to build up that empathy and rapport and engage with people so that you get the information that you need for the inquiry.
Detective Inspector, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wicked, and I hope that this show goes really well, because you're going to get a season 2 and then you're going to see us on it, and then we're going to blow you out of the water. So we do have one final clip from Murder Island for this discussion today. And here we see the amateur detectives analysing the autopsy report, which essentially ends up changing the direction of their investigations.
The only significant injuries were a stab wound to the trunk.
Yeah.
And an incised wound cut to the left hand.
Yeah.
If there was a wound to her hand, do you think she was fighting back?
Yeah.
And probably got it from that?
Her hand. Yeah.
The uterus was slightly bulky.
She was pregnant.
The interpretation of the autopsy results, of course, is a significant point in any investigation. How should a good investigator analyse the evidence?
Most evidence is circumstantial evidence, unless there's a witness who's literally seen the entire crime occur. Because remember, we're taking this to court to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And so if we've just got circumstantial evidence, we need there to be a lot of it to prove beyond reasonable doubt.
What about when you are confronted with evidence that almost confirms the theory that you decided?
Well, that's something that's called confirmation bias. And that is essentially where you have this pre-existing idea of what has happened, and then some sort of evidence seems to back that up. Mm-hmm. But the risk of that is that you can interpret small things being bigger than they are, being more important than they are. The other side of confirmation bias is that you might also miss out on more important bits of evidence that go against what your theory is or your ideas are.
If we were to rock up to Murder Island, Detective 1, Detective 2, what do you think our dynamic would be? How do you think we would conduct our interview?
Either you're bad cop, I'm good cop.
Go on then.
Let's be honest, you'd be bad cop. Or you're the chatty one and I'm the sort of silent type in the corner. Yeah, I'm going...
Notepad guy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm analysing them, making them feel very uncomfortable, but you're being lovely and chatty and I'm just there like, can you repeat that, please?
Would you go on the show?
Yeah, I would. I think I'd probably be bad at it, but I'd do it. I'll give it a go. Try anything once.
Season 2?
Yeah.
Me and you?
Yeah. Make it happen.
If you want to watch Murder Island, you can find it on All 4, along with a whole range of other amazing true crime programmes.